All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. And as part of the Rankin Technical College Application and Website Development, or AWD1100 Programming Fundamentals with C# class, I've been creating a series of video presentations based on the PowerPoints slides for the textbook for the class, that being what you see on your screen right here, Murox C# 7th edition. So far, I have gone through and done all of Section 1 and all of Section 2. I have also lectured on Chapter 12, but at the end of Chapter 12, what we are told to do is to create this calculator right here. So, I have not written a lick of code yet, but as you can see, and it's not perfect, but that is my take on this calculator. Also, unlike what they have here, I have removed the minimize and maximize, and there's another button as well. Let's see, minimize, maximize, and the control box. So there's no buttons up here. I've locked my interface in place. I used a label they did here, but I don't know how they did that. They've got that outline. I just made it white. The back, clear, divide, multiply, subtract, add, and equal buttons are all red as they are here. I didn't know exactly what that color blue was, so I just picked out a blue. For the 7, 8, 9, square root, 4, 5, 6, 1x, 1, 2, 3, and 0 plus minus decimal point buttons. So what I'm going to do, and I'll probably end up doing this over 2 lectures, if not more, but I'm going to try to not keep it down to 2 lectures, is to write both the calculator class and then fix this interface. So the first thing I'm going to do, it's the calculator program. If I run it right now, just so you see, okay, it is set up. Now, I didn't do anything with setting up the accept button or the cancel button or the tab order, because you never know with something like this what somebody's going to do. All right, so with that said, let me just go on. First thing I want to do is I want to come in here. I want to right mouse click on my calculator and project and choose an add class. And it's a calculator program, so let's make a calculator class. All right, and I will immediately, as I have been doing, make this public. All right, now there's a few things in here, such as, well, let's see. I'm going to first create my instance variables. And I'm going to have private decimal, and we'll call it operand 1, private decimal operand 2, and also private operation. Don't worry, this will be fixed in a minute. And I want it to say op, or we'll just call it what it is, operation. All right, what else do I want? I'm going to have a couple booleans, so private bool is new value, and another private bool and it's going to be has decimal point. Okay, now for this private operation, I want to make an enumeration here. So private enum operation, and it'll have in there what? Add, subtract, multiply, multiply, divide, square root, we'll put here power and none. Okay. You'll notice that the error here went away now because I've set up my enumeration. So what you see right here, okay, and trying to remember, so let me bring up the calculator. That's not the calendar, I want the calculator. So if I type in 89 and I hit that button, that's the one for power. All right, so I'm going to put that in because I've got the wrong one in there right now and I'm anal about this stuff. So I'm going to put in here, calculate it. Let's do images. Images. And I'm going to put in here, calculator, power button. Okay, and where is that? Power button, not power. Raise to power button symbol? I don't know. That's, looks like it's X to the N. So let's change that. I don't know if I can even do that. But right now it looks like this. It's 1 over X. That's a reciprocal function. I don't want that. So I'm going to change that. It's called power. So I'm going to put X. For now, I'll just put X N. So it's going to look wrong, but I'll see if I can fix that later. Okay, that just makes me feel a little bit better. All right, so jumping back into my code for my calculator here. All right, let's see. I'm also going to need some kind of a display string. So these instance variables, I'm going to move these down. You know what, I'll just move these up. How's that? All right, so this first one is value a new value or not? That'll be this. Does value already have decimal point? So that's those. These are the instance variables, including the enumeration. I'm also going to need the answer that goes into the label, and we'll just call it display string. And we'll initialize it to nothing. Okay, so we've got that done. All right, let's come in. There's a few things we'll want to do. So let's add our constructor. Doesn't make any sense to pass anything into this constructor, so I'll just say public calculator. And whenever we create a brand new calculator, we'll want to clear everything. Now, it's giving me an error because we don't have a clear written yet, but I'm going to write that right now. So clear interface values, maybe that's a dumb but. So public void clear. And what are we going to do? The display string should be equal to nothing. The has decimal point will be equal to false. It's a brand new value. There's no decimal point. The is new value will be equal to true because it is going to be a new value. And what else do we want? Operand 1 will be equal to 0. It has no value yet. Same with operand 2. And our operation, our operation will be equal to operation none. We haven't done anything yet, in other words. Okay? So when we start all over again, that should clear everything. All right. All right, so what do we want to do here? I'm going to write this, and I'm going to use at least some of the newer functionality. In other words, the arrow type of functions, because I want you to get used to seeing it. So I'm going to put in here public string, display string, string dot is null or empty on the display string. If it is null or empty, meaning there's nothing in there right now. All right. So if I've just started and my display string has nothing in it, I want to put in a 0. And that 0 that you see right there, that 0 is going to be that 0 right there. All right. So that's first thing. Now we have to figure out what do we want to do here. In other words, as we go through this, what are we going to be doing? So this will either display the current value in label or display 0 in label. Okay. All right. I might be missing something here, but next I'm going to I'm going to do a thing called append. All right. So add to current label contents. Call it whatever I want, but I'm appending. So I'm going to say public void append, and it will be a string, and it'll be, well, I said contents there, so contents is fine. Okay. First thing I have to do is I have to say, is this a brand new value? So if is new value, again, I want to make sure my display string is set to nothing. My has decimal should be set to false because it's a new value. And my is new value, all right, well, I can set that actually to false because what I'm doing now is what I'm going to do is I'm going to be appending. All right. So I'm setting is new value equal to false to show that now I can actually put something in there. All right. if the original value in the label is just a 0, do not allow more zeros to be appended to it. All right. So right now, if my display string is equal to 0 and my contents are also equal to 0. So if that's the case, okay, put this on a new line. If that's the case, I don't want to do anything. In other words, I don't want to add anything to it. Otherwise, I want to add the contents to it. Now, if that confuses you, play computer. In English, this says, okay, if what's currently in this display string right here, if the only thing in it right now is a 0, and I'm attempting to put more zeros in there, don't allow it. If either one of these is false, meaning either that's false or they both are, then set the contents, add the contents to the display string. Hopefully that made at least a little bit of sense. All right. See where I am for time. I'm at 17 minutes. I'm going to pause because I want to see what I want to do next. But before I do that, I'm just going to run it. All I'm trying to do is double check. Yep, it didn't break. Okay, so nothing is broken right now. I probably should have left that X in there so I could end the program. So let me go back because I removed it. So let me go back. And that, what was it called? Control box, I think. I'm going to set that to true so I can click on that X to end the program. Good. Okay. All right. Give me a second. I will going to pause for just a second and come back. Think about what I want to do next, and so I can explain that to you as well. All right, as I work my way down here, I've done the clear button, but I didn't do the backspace. All right, so that actually is my clear button. And I think when I do this, I'm going to want to call, this is not going to work right now, so let me comment it out. Calc dot clear, but I'm not even sure if that's right. All right, but I also, not only my clear, but I want to handle my backspace. So I want to remove the last thing that was put in there. So let me move this down. All right, so this will handle hitting the back key on the calculator. And this will handle hitting the clear key, or button I should say would be a little bit better, not really the key. So that's the button, the back button or the clear button on the calculator. All right. All right. So when I do this, I'm going to call a routine. So I'm going to call remove last character, because that's what the backspace is supposed to be doing, which I got to write. All right, so let's think about how to do this. I only want to do this if there is nothing to remove. So in other words, if is new value, all right, I thought I had an is new value. Name, where did I do that? I'm writing this in the wrong place. Okie dokie. That's the problem when you do this. I'm mixing some stuff up here. So don't worry about this. Remove last character. Don't worry about any of this. Let me just remove this, and we'll leave that in there. For a fact, we'll just remove that. So what I want to do is go back to my calculator class. Now I want to handle removing the last character. So I'm going to put a, usually most of these are going to be public. So public void remove last character. Okay. So the first thing is I only want to do this if it's not a new value. So if it's not a new value, then I want to do this. There won't be any else, because if it's a new value, there's nothing to remove. So I only want to remove it. You can only remove the last character if there is at least one character to remove. Okay. Okay, otherwise there's nothing to remove. So if that's the case, I'm going to say the length, or len, is equal to the display string, good morning, display string dot length, but -1, because I'm about to remove that character that's in there. All right, so that's the first thing. And then I want to reset display string to be equal to display string And basically in English, that will right there, that will remove the last character. Then I have to check to see if the display string is now empty. If so, set is new value to true to reflect this. All right. So if I'm using this is null or empty, which is checking just that, if it's null or if it's empty. If that's the case, then is new value is going to be equal to true, because again, it is a brand new value. All right. And all right, so I had company in the classroom, so this is going to check to see if the string is empty. And I also have to, let's see, if what I removed was a decimal point, I want to set the has decimal to false. So if a decimal point was just removed, or was removed, when the remove last character method was called, then I have to set the has decimal point to false, because there no longer is a decimal point. I think, yep, that's what I called it, has decimal point. Okay, so again, in here, if the display string dot contains that would say if it doesn't contain a decimal point, that's what this says. So if it doesn't contain a decimal point, then has decimal point is equal to false. Now hopefully that just makes sense to go and look at that. All right. So again, if there wasn't a decimal point in there, I need another paren there. If there wasn't a decimal point in there, now if I just remove the decimal point, all right, then my Boolean has decimal point should be set to false. All right. All right. So what else do we have here? So we should have now covered the back and I think the clear. All right. Well, these are all operations in here, right? So in other words, that's square root's an operation. This x to the n is an operation. Minus or divide, multiply, etc. That's not an operation. That's just going to change the sign, right? So if that button is clicked, what I want to do is change the sign. So in other words, if the plus minus button is clicked, change the sign from positive to negative, or vice versa. Again, I'm trying to add a bunch of comments in here. I just think it'll make more sense. So let's call this public void. Well, we're toggling the sign, so we're going to call it toggle sign. All right. And what we're going to say here is our display string is now equal to our display value dot toString. Now, what's the difference between display string and display value? Display string is whatever we put in here, but that's a label, so it's a string. Display value is whatever we end up when we convert what's in there over to a decimal. Well, I haven't done that, so let's do that. So we've got remove last character, and we've got this. We did the append. We've got this display string. Why don't we put it after this one? All right. And this will be an example of a private helper function or helper method. We will use the public property, property display string and not the private, what I'm doing here, display string because the display string property returns 0 if null, but the display string property returns null if null. So we want the 0 in there, in other words. All right, that's just going to be a line or two. So private decimal display value, and that will be convert dot to decimal, and we want to convert not display value here, but display string, display try it again. We want to convert display string. There we go. Okay. All right. We've got our append. We've got our remove last. We've got our toggle sign, which right now isn't working. Will that work now? There we go. All right. Now we have to handle adding the decimal point when indeed we want the decimal point to be added. All right, so we want to write the routine which will add a decimal point when necessary. All right, let's see. Where are we here? We are there. There's a public class. This method adds a decimal point to the label contents if the label does not currently have a decimal point. All right. So public void add decimal point. So if there is not a decimal point, so if not has decimal point, and if this is a new value, okay, the display string is going to be equal to nothing. Has decimal will now, or has decimal point will now be equal to false because we just are putting one in. Our is new value will also be equal to false because we have just put in something. And we want to be able to append a leading 0. Right? This will be in the case where if the first character that we put in is a decimal point. So verify there is currently no decimal point. Verify this is a new value. All right, so we've got all that done. Now, if it's not a new value, so again, if not a new value, I don't know why I got two sets of curlies here, but I do. Get rid of one of them. That's why. It doesn't like that when I hit that like that. Okay. Then I want to just append a decimal point. So I want to append a leading 0 if it's a brand new value. All right, if it's a brand new value, I want to append a 0 and then the decimal point. If it's not a brand new value, I just want to append the decimal point. Semicolon, and either way, now there is a decimal point, so has decimal point is now equal to true because there's a decimal point. All right, so now I'm going to go in and I'm going to do my add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Where am I for time? All right, let's do those. We should be able to do those fairly quickly. I'd actually like to finish this. I don't know how many more lines I have to type, maybe 30 or 40. So I'm going to try to see if I can finish this all in here. All right, so, and because this is getting hard for me to read, all right, so I'm going to add a bunch of comments right now. I like to do this. You don't have to. So there's my begin line. Then at the very bottom for that is my end line. So I'm just going to be adding a whole bunch of these types of comments. There's my begin class line. And right before the end, that is my end. Oops. That is my end class line. Okay. Like I said, I'm doing this for me. It makes it easier for me to realize what's going on here. So here at begin public class calculus, I just did that. So there's beginning my enum, ending my enum, begin my constructor. End my constructor. Here I'm going to begin my clear method. Here I'm going to end my clear method. This is just one line, and so is this, so I don't have to do anything there. Here I'm going to begin my append. Here I'm going to end my append. Here I'm going to begin this if. Here I'm going to end that if. Here I'm going to begin that remove last character. Here I'm going to end remove last character. Here is the beginning of my if. Again, many people think that what I'm doing right here is overkill, but it works for me. Okay, so all right, that's almost got it done. I'm just about finished here. So I'm moving my way down. There's the end. And one more and I'm finished. Well, I lied. There. That is everything. So I'm all caught up. So now I want to do my different mathematical operations. In other words, my addition, my subtraction, my multiplication, and my division. All right? So just do them in order. And I'm going to come in here and say, okay, the set values for operation. I don't think I've written that yet. Nope. So I'll write that down below this. So don't worry about the error that's here. It'll be fixed momentarily. So we've got add. Then we will have subtract. And notice operation dot, it finds all that stuff for me, because that was, again, added via our enumeration or enum. Multiply. And divide. All right. We've got our square root. right, and for our square root, we want to do this, but it should be square root in here. All right, and again, we'll do our comments. All right, we will do our power. And this will have to be power. So will this. So what do I have left? The equals. And then my set values for operations. So let's do the equals next. As always, we'll put in our comments. All right. So this will happen when we click the equal button. So the display value is going to be our second. So that's the second operator or operand we just put in. All right. And then we would do a switch, which you have to spell right, on the operand, or operation, I guess it is. Operation. Okay. Case operation add. Our calculated value, which is going to be a decimal. We got to put that in here. So let's add that. Decimal calculated value, which is going to be 0.0 m when we start. All right. So here the calculated value will be equal to operand 1 plus operand 2 with a break. All right, I'm going to put all these in. Then I'm going to show you how we can shorten this. So this is calculated value. All right, so I'm going to put all of these in, and then I'm going to show you how we can shorten this. So there's add. Then we've got subtract with a minus sign. Then we've got multiply with a multiply sign. And finally, we've got divide. And that'll have a divide sign in there. Totally fine to do it this way. No problem whatsoever. And we'll do our default where we will just break. Okay, we won't do anything else. All right, I'm not done here, but what I want to show you is that's a switch. That's a totally legitimate switch. But there's now a faster way of doing this. I want to show you this. So I'm going to grab this line that I put in here. This decimal calculated value, and it's going to be equal to operation switch. All right, and then in our curly braces, we don't even need these anymore. So if it's an add, we want to do this. Okay, and I don't think we need a break in there anymore. Now, It's looking a little funky, so I'm going to make sure it works. So decimal calculated value, that needs an equal sign. All right, so there's our add. That's going to be our subtract. Hopefully this is going to clear up in just a moment. Let's move all these over just so they're little soldiers and they line up. That's going to be this. And then, oops, operand. And then finally, our divide. So you can see, hopefully, a lot of brevity here, more brevity in the code. And instead of a default, we put in the discard character, and we'll just say that it's equal to operand 2. And no curly there, or is there no semicolon there, but we need a semicolon here. Now, doesn't like what I've done, so let me look quickly at it. I want to switch on the operation. So decimal operand 2 equals display value. Decimal calculated value equals the operation. Switch. Doesn't like something in here. Oh, my language isn't set for this. Show potential fixes. Add missing cases. No, I don't want that. Let me go back, because I'm working, I guess, with an older version. So I'm going to just send it back, and I'm going to put in all of my, what we had in here, which were all of the case statements. So it won't look as nice. It won't be as brief, so to speak. All right, so we've now got that. So decimal calculated value, we're going to set that equal to 0.0m, and we're going to do a switch on our operation. Okay, all right, so that cleared all of that up. Now, I do have an answer. So I can say my display string is equal to my calculated value dot toString. My operation, or my operation is going to now be equal to operation dot none. There isn't any. My has decimal point is going to be equal to false, and my is new value is actually going to be equal to true. Let me go back and spend a minute going over everything that we put into this equal sign routine. All right, so again, I'm still getting all these set. We're going to fix that next. All right, but if we click the equal sign, well, now we're ready to figure out and calculate our value. So that's what it's going to be there. Okay, our second operand, the thing is what we just entered. It's our display value. And then we're going to switch. If we told it to add, if we click the plus button, we're telling it to add our operand 1 and operand 2. If we click the subtract or the minus sign, we're going to tell it to subtract operand 2 from operand 1. If we click the multiply, button, the asterisk, we're going to tell it to multiply operand 1 by operand 2. And if we click the divide, which is the /, we're telling it to take operand 1 and divide from it operand 2. And in all these cases, that's our calculated value. Then we're going to take that calculated value, convert it to a string, and put it into our display string, which is, of course, is this. All right. Now, clear out all stuff. Dumb comment, but okay. So the only thing that I know of that is left to do is to write this set values for operation, and that'll be another helper method. So it'll be private, and we'll put a comment there. Just say that it's a private helper method, and I explained helper methods earlier. Private void set values for operation, and the operation will be put in there, and we'll just call it op. All right. Now, all of those errors that were in here before, you'll notice they're all gone. So I still have to write this routine, which isn't long. It's just a few lines. And then we're done with the class. So our operation is equal to the op we just passed in. Operand 1 is equal to the display value. So it's equal to whatever we put in there first. All right. And these are going to handle right now our square root and our power function. Okay, so again, decimal, oopsie, I can't do it like that because we just tried doing it like that before and it didn't work. So decimal, calculated value, again, will be 0.0m. And we will say, want to set it up just like we set up this one. So we're going to do a switch on our operation. And case operation dot square root. So if we click the square root, okay, we want to say decimal math.sqrt convert dot to double operand 1. So in other words, if this is the case, okay, all we want to do, and that's going to be calculated value equals that. Okay, so if it's that case, if it's square root, that'll figure out the square root for us. And we will need a break. And for the case of operation dot power, all right, I'm just going to copy this because it's not the same, but it's close. This will be math dot do I really want to do a power? I don't know, because I'm going to need to know both of the things I want to do it to. Let's not do a power. All right. They did in theirs, they did a reciprocal. That's what this one was. So I'm going to change the name of this to BTN reciprocal. And this was 1 1-x. All right, which means I'm going to have to also come back and in my calculator thing that's here, I'm going to have to change this. So this won't be power, this will be reciprocal, which means that down here will also be wrong. That'll be reciprocal. Let me fix this a little bit. So okay. Whoops. All right. So if we want the reciprocal right here, that's what this is going to have to change. The calculated value will just be 1 divided by operand 1. Okay, this can move over. Now, for the case of the square root and the reciprocal, we only have one operand. That's why we're handling the set values for operation in here. Okay, when we get done with this, so when we get done with our switch, we're going to say display string equal calculated value dot toString. All right, our has decimal point will be equal to false because we're done. And our is new value will be true. Okay, and I believe, I could be mistaken, but I believe we're done with this now. This is our, and that won't be operation power, that'll be operation reciprocal. That'll be reciprocal. Guess I should have just copied that. Like that. So I'm going to save everything. When I look in here, it's got some stuff that's some warnings. Some stuff is assigned but not used. There, and there. Is assigned but its value is never used. I'm not sure about that, but that's fine. That's these three here. And the has decimal point, it's saying 2 is never used, even though it is. Okay? All right. So that is done. That is it for part 1 of this. And when I come back in just a couple minutes, I'm going to do part 2. And in part 2, so you'll notice that if I do save everything and I run it, it does run, but nothing works right now. You know, I can't put these values in. That's going to be in our design file in here. That's where we'll cover all that stuff. And I'll do that in just a couple minutes.